Hi there, welcome. My name is Lynn Dome, Woman in Cybersecurity Executive Director. We often go by our acronym WICIS, W-I-C-Y-S, and we pronounce it We Sis, like we sisters, because that's exactly what we are. We are a cyber sisterhood with a mission to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. We have over 5,200 members and representation in over 70 countries. And because our mission is to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity, we do so by creating opportunities. So we have an online member forum, skill development training programs, newsletters, webinars, scholarships, grants, and awards, not only for our conference that's coming up March 17th through the 19th, but other conferences as well. We have a cyber talent emergency fund, speaking and media opportunities so members can be what others can see. And that's the cybersecurity professionals that we are. The WESIS programs also have apprenticeships, internships, leadership summits, leadership series, a mentor-mentee program, which we're so proud that has 191 mentors in it right now and 775 mentees. And the program is designed and developed to upskill and uplevel women no matter where they're at in their career, preparing them for their next level of advancement. So we have so many different initiatives and training programs. Please check out our website and reach out to us if you have any questions. We owe all this as a special thanks from our strategic partners, LinkedIn being a very proud strategic partner of ours that's bringing the webinar here today. But we also have AWS, Bloomberg, Carnegie Mellon Software Engineering Institute, Cisco, Facebook, Google, Intel, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, Optum, SentinelOne, AbbVie, Fortinet, JP Chase, Morgan Chase and Company, LinkedIn, that brings us our webinar today, Navy Federal Credit Union, Nike, Wayfair, Workday, and so many more. So I'd like to encourage you all that you're attending this. We had a really high registration for today's event, so I'm super excited to dive into this lively panel discussion on how to prepare yourself for making a career transition in cybersecurity. And we want to make sure that we utilize this opportunity for you as the audience to ask as many questions as possible for our panelists. So this is your time throughout the event. Continue to post your questions. And at the end, we're going to open it up for Q&A where the panelists will answer those questions live. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the WESIS newsletter. It's on our website, wesis.org. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Angel from LinkedIn, and she's going to take the panel discussion from here. Angel?
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are diving into this webinar. So my name is Angel Lu. So I currently working at LinkedIn, and I lead our governance, risk, and compliance team as part of the InfoSec organization. And as Lynn mentioned, that LinkedIn just became the strategic partner with WISIS this year. So where we can actually have this awesome opportunity to share more about us, more about like what we're doing in the industry with all of you in this community. And personally, I also actually participate in the mentorship and a program this year. So both as mentor and mentee. So one thing that really impressed me being part of that program and also very encouraging to see is almost every single person I've met so far during like in my mentor and mentee cohort, they all came from like very different background, but all end up in cybersecurity or on their way into security. Then I look around in my org and my team and the people I work with day in and day out, and I realized that one of the secret sauce that make the team really, really awesome is we do have a very diverse background, professionals who didn't start their career in cybersecurity, but somehow made their way into security. So that's kind of how we thought like this is going to be a great opportunity for us to share more of their stories today with all of you. So I will be moderating today's conversation. And with me, I have Nina, Sarah, Mira, and also Jeff on the call with us today. And with that, I will actually have all the panelists to introduce themselves a little bit while we're doing it in a LinkedIn traditional way that tell us a little bit about what you do at LinkedIn and what's not on your LinkedIn profile. We'll skip the demonstrating your special talent today due to the time constraint. So let's introduce our panelists today. So we can start with Jeff.
Great. We'll save the worst for first. I'm Jeff Belknap. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at LinkedIn, and I have a dog playing with a toy in the background, so that should be exciting. But let's see. Oh, one thing that's not on my LinkedIn profile. I once was in command of an aircraft carrier for about 8 hours. And if you want to hear more about that, we can talk about it on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'll throw it over to you, Sarah.
Okay. Boy, I wish I had something like that to announce. Okay. So at LinkedIn, I lead our customer information security team for Asia Pacific, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. So basically everywhere but North America, which actually is where I live. But I like to talk to people around the world, so I asked for that job. And what we do is answer customers' security questionnaires about LinkedIn as an organization and about our products. And we get on the phone with customers to reassure them about our security program. And let's see, something that's not on my LinkedIn profile. I don't think I have on there that I spend most of my free time doing crossword puzzles and jigsaw puzzles obsessively. So there you go. All right, over to Nina.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'm Nina Mushiana. I'm a senior manager in LinkedIn InfoSec. I manage a team of software developers, SREs, and security engineers. And all of my teams focus on building infrastructure for InfoSec, whether it's vulnerability management, identity, or defense. Something that is not on my LinkedIn profile is, I'll say, one is that I'm ambidextrous, and there's a story behind it. I wasn't born that way. It was something, I think I was left-handed, but I was taught to be right-handed, so I just learned to use both. And another thing is my dog, which is not, I think he should be on my LinkedIn profile. I was just telling everyone how he's in all of my meetings. He should be signing NDAs also because he has so much confidential data now. So that's something that's not on my profile. And Mira, off to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mira. I am a product security engineer at LinkedIn. I've been here at LinkedIn for the last 5 years. My team at LinkedIn partners with various lines of business to ensure that we ship secure products. We engage with different product teams at various stages of the product development lifecycle, right from requirements to design to implementation. And we perform design reviews, code reviews, pen tests. We do a ton of automation, for example, implementing tools that detect and mitigate a particular class of vulnerabilities. That pretty much sums up what I do at LinkedIn. Something that's not on my LinkedIn profile, I love being outdoors and I love climbing mountains. So I've climbed a couple of big mountains and trekked around for a few weeks in Nepal. I've climbed Kilimanjaro. So yeah, that is something that I don't have on my LinkedIn profile.
Thank you, everyone. Definitely learned something new about some of you. And also, by the way, Lynn will be actually posting a lot of our open position at LinkedIn through the announcement. So you will see something pop up at your screen. So definitely pay attention to that. So I think one question I'm sure our audience will be very interested in to knowing more about all of you is, of course, like you're all very established security professionals, seasoned leaders in this field today. But how did you actually get your first job in security? What was that story like? What was the opportunity that presented to you? So let's start with Nina. Tell us a little bit about like how did you get into security?
Of course. I'll say that my first job in security is a story of transformation. In my previous life at LinkedIn, I was managing an SRE team that was focused on building LinkedIn's business continuity planning and disaster recovery. It was very exciting, but after doing that for almost 5 years, I was looking for a change. And security is something that always interested me, but since I did not have a background, it seemed like an unattainable goal. I'm glad that I had a conversation with one of the leader in InfoSec, and he encouraged me. With his encouragement, I was able to transition from SRE to InfoSec, where I started managing a team of engineers that managed access and different tier 1 requests. And that gave me really good introduction of all the different InfoSec tracks there are. I will do a shameless plug of LinkedIn's culture here that heavily supports career transformation. After moving to securities, I realized that the work we do in InfoSec is so significant. It might not be as visible as having a product in our hand or something we can see, but the responsibility and stakes, I believe, are higher than any other engineering track. And I'm fortunate to work for a company that allowed me to find my next play, and grow without having to leave. So this is my story of how I got my first job in security.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Sarah, what about you?
So here's how I broke into the security field, because I worked at this and schemed at this for several years. More than a decade ago, after getting laid off from when I was 7 months pregnant from a job that I thought was my dream job on the editorial team of a book publishing company, I was hired to write sales proposals for a applicant tracking software company. You know, that tool that your recruiters use to process your applications and make interview notes about you and all that. Um, I'd never heard of one of those before to begin with, though I'd used them as an applicant. So I'm writing proposals for them. And there was one person on our team that answered security questionnaires. I did not know what those were. And that person wasn't me. But after about a year, we started getting more and more of those. And so I don't remember if the person who did the questionnaires asked me to take one on, or if I asked her if I could try one. But I did a couple and I really enjoyed it. I think it had something to do with me always being really good at standardized tests with the reading comprehension section, like read something and then be able to describe it and interpret it to maybe multiple choice. These questionnaires even had multiple choice. Like I could, and I started to learn from the questionnaires I was answering. I started to ask to do more. And then I began to do like what I was trained to do in my journalism background, just pester people that knew more than me and then like retell their story in my own words, right? So I made friends in engineering. I made friends on the security team. I convinced all of these people that I was making their job easier by talking to sales, and they didn't have to do it as much. Um, and then after a while, I noticed people were starting to refer to me as the security expert over in sales. And then the people in sales were calling me part of the security team, which I wasn't really. But I thought, you know what? I think I would like to be. And when nothing came open there for a while, through a series of reorganizations and new managers, I managed to change my own title to customer security consultant or something like that. I put it on my email signatures and no one stopped me. And so then I was like doing security in a sales role. And before long, after a few years, they let me build up a team with several people, just basically doing what I do now. And I've never looked back. I would do this forever.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think especially a lot of people, when they think about security, they think about, incident response or pen testers, like very technical job, right? But the customer security team is actually growing more and more in the industry, has a very high demand for a lot of company now. And honestly, that's like the only team that actually generates revenue for the company, but very few people actually knows this team exists. I'm really glad that Sarah is here today to share her experience on that team and how she got into it. So what about you, Mira?
My path to a security job is a little more traditional, where I graduated with a master's degree specialized in information security. I applied to different companies and I got hired at a security consulting firm. And I got to work with awesome security companies, security firms, teams within different companies in the Bay Area. And LinkedIn was one of them too. And I was fortunate enough to work on different fun projects during my time there. And I finally moved to LinkedIn to work at the product security team.
Awesome, Mira. Well, last but not least, Jeff, how about you? How did you get into security and also became a CISO?
Well, I think I I think I accidentally became a CISO, and we can talk more about that. But I got into security after a rewarding career in networking. I just wanted to try something else. I think I was working for banks and was sort of over it, and I wanted to do something else. There was a startup that was in town where I was at the time, and they said it was a security startup. And they said, "Hey, do you want to come run IT and operations and manufacturing and service?" And I was like, "That sounds like a lot." They're like, "Well, it's only 8 people with the company." And I was like, "Okay, well, I can probably not screw that up." And I got to learn a lot about security, and it was really a great opportunity for me because I got to learn about building a business. I got to learn about the security industry, about marketing security, about GRC, about what customers ask when they're buying security products, about what it's like to be a vendor in the security space. Because I think a lot of us, when we have this conversation, we also forget like it's perfectly valid to join the cybersecurity career path by joining a security vendor. It's sometimes, sometimes people look down upon it, but it like feels very valid to me. And then, later in my career, I came across a company that was looking to build a security organization. They said, "Hey, you're an adult who makes good decisions." And I said, "I don't know that that's true, but I wouldn't mind trying to build a security team." And I was very fortunate that it turned out it worked out well, and that I was okay at doing that. And now several other companies have asked me to run security teams. So at this point, I have stopped faking it as much, and I'm now doing it professionally. And so here we are.
Nice. Well, this is really awesome to hear everyone's story, and I think, as you can tell, like everyone has a so different reason and different paths into security. And my next question, actually, I saw one of the audience actually asked a very similar question, which we see a lot, is what kind of advice you will have for women who are trying to shift career and don't have a formal computer science or IT background. And we get those questions a lot, right? So sometimes people get very intimidated by looking at the job posts that you have to have computer science background. There is a long list of certification that in the job description, the job requirement, and that actually turns a lot of people away when they see those. So I definitely love to hear from the panels. What's your thought around that? Like, is it really required to have a computer science background? Or even like engineering or IT background. So I will start with Sarah, because I know that Sarah actually first job was not in tech, and would love to hear from Sarah. Like, what's your experience so far? And when you switch your job, like, what are some ways for you to kind of learn more about security to kind of gain that knowledge?
Yeah, actually, I have a degree in English and sociology. And people always ask, what are you going to do with a degree in English or sociology? And I thought the smartest thing to do then was to go get another arts degree in communication. So I wasn't exactly trained or like educated for a job in tech or in cybersecurity. But maybe because of my background, I realized that you don't need that kind of background to be good at security. You can have a non-technical degree and a non-technical career behind you, that shows that you've got abilities that are highly adaptable for you to succeed in security. That includes the social sciences. I have seen several people from sociology and psychology backgrounds be interested and do well in cybersecurity. And I'll just list off some other degrees I've seen: accounting, finance, logistics and systems. I've seen project management degrees and business degrees. And, sometimes it's just a job at a security vendor, just like Jeff was talking about. I know someone getting into the field from that angle. And I've known 2 folks with music related degrees who are doing very well in the security field today. But wherever you are, you can, if you want, become a security expert in your current job. Volunteer for projects that will get you close to the security team, make yourself useful to them. Tap into one of the many and any online training opportunities for beginners. I noticed that at one point that my company had a learning management system I could use, a lot of free training, and I took 2 Security Plus courses without ever taking that particular exam, just because there was a lot of foundational information there. And there are a lot of good courses on LinkedIn Learning, which anybody can sign up for, and a lot of other sites that I've used as well. Udemy comes to mind. And those were helpful. And you can always put course completion on your resume, whether or not you tried to get the certificate. I signed up for any webinar that looked interesting, and you can add that completion to your profiles. Microsoft, the SANS Institute, and others, IAPP, all have security webinars that you can learn from. And if you want to get real technical, you can teach yourself. I know 2 engineers who never worked on cloud software until they were around 50 years old, and they taught themselves at home, practicing in new programming languages, and then both of them managed to demonstrate their skills during interview process and get jobs in a more modern environment than the old school engineering. So that's what I have to say about that.
Thanks for sharing. And Mira, I know you're like have the security and the computer science background, and but I know that you also work with tons of people on your team who doesn't necessarily have those background, or you're mentoring people that are thinking to move into security. What are some advices that you have for them, for folks that specifically doesn't have a degree? And what are some resources that you would recommend for them to actually wanting to be more in a more technical role?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with Sarah's views on this here. You don't necessarily have to have a degree in computer science or have certifications, especially in like application security. There are a lot of avenues that are available that you can pick up the relevant skills, right? For example, Web Security Academy or OWASP has a ton of materials. Offensive Security has a bunch of materials. And you also have a lot of platforms that are actually fun to apply all of those skills, right? You have a lot of capture the flag challenges that are available out there. Bug bounty is a great way to learn and apply these skills. There are a lot of people who don't have a traditional background, but then they were able to pick up programming languages, as Sarah mentioned, and learn application security on top of it, and then do bug bounty, right? And that actually helped them, hone their application security skills.
Awesome. Any other thoughts from Nina or Jeff wants to add there?
I'll jump in here and just say, I think the short answer to this question, whether you need a degree to join the cybersecurity space, is no, absolutely not. I don't have a degree in cybersecurity. And in fact, when I started in security, I had no bachelor's degree whatsoever. I dropped out of college, 2 years into it to go work in tech and build telecommunications networks because I was extremely lucky and had an opportunity to do that. Does it make it easy or easier to get a job in security if you have some sort of certificate? Like, sure, that it will potentially make it easier. But the reality is, like, you can look at jobs that you feel like you are qualified for or that you are capable of completing and just apply for those, right? I think the 2 things to keep in mind, and especially if you're an underrepresented in some kind of underrepresented group, or if you're, whether that be a woman or some sort of cultural or national background, is do not, under any circumstances, do the basic thing of looking at the job and going like, well, I don't meet every single qualification. And I mean this even for LinkedIn jobs, like for any job. If you feel like you meet the needs of the employer and you can do that job well, apply. The worst that's going to happen is you don't get a response, right? But if you don't apply, you're never going to be considered. You can, of course, work on certificates and other things that I think Mira thought of, but there are so many different ways to get into the space, and there are so many different jobs in cybersecurity that you should never limit yourself to just one discipline, and you should never self-select yourself out of the running for one of those jobs. Now, if you look at it and you're like, there's no way I have any audit experience or have any personal skills that would make me good at audit, like, sure, don't apply for a job you know you're going to be bad at, but never hold back, because like most of the people here, I think Mira is the only one that had a very traditional approach to security. Everybody else has come from different angles and different levels of education. See yourself in that, and believe in yourself and what you're capable of doing. Other people will too. Not, doesn't mean every single job's going to reply to you, but believe in yourself. You will get those interviews. You will get those conversations. And I think the other thing I'll say here before I see if Nina has anything to share, interviewing is a skill. Writing a resume or even your LinkedIn profile is a skill. The more you do it, the better you will get at it. And like, look, I've had interviews that went horribly and definitely made me emotional, but you learn from that and you get better at that. And while it will make you feel not great to not get a job after an interview, you just have to keep at it, and then keep seeing what you can learn from, and especially build your network of people that can mentor you or that you can learn from. It is a completely accessible career field from that perspective. I don't know, Nina, do you have anything you want to share? Or?
I couldn't have said it better. I'm in a complete agreement that I don't think we need a degree in cybersecurity to have a career in cybersecurity. Like all of you, my bachelor is in biology. I thought I would be a microbiologist. And my first job was as a security guard at a web hosting company. And that's when I was fascinated with so many computers there. And I was like, I want to know. And I pivoted to tech. So I strongly believe that we do not need the degree, but the interest has to be there, and then effort. Then it's totally achievable.
For sure, totally agree. I remember when I first started my job in security, I was actually very keen on getting all of those certification because it just made me feel good. I'd have all of those lists on my LinkedIn profile. But I have to say, like, those are good as a refresher sometimes to kind of, for especially people are new or early in their career, to kind of understand some of the terminology, different domain. But there's also tons of free resources, and those certification, they're not cheap. They're very expensive, like whether you take the CISSP or SENSE training. So if those are not an option for you, I think both Sarah and the Mira mentioned you can do a bounty program if you want to get some practice, a very practical experience, or there's tons of resources on LinkedIn Learning as well that you can really get you in the door of security. And I think people learn the best on the job. And at least that's how I feel, that you will learn the best, or the reality, the real world of security once you're actually in the field. And that's where you can really grow your skill set and everything. All right, so let's move on to my next question. I think Jeff also mentioned like security is such a broad domain and it has like multiple different disciplines, and you can be AppSec, incident response, or customer security, or security engineer. Like, do you have any advices for people who are wanting to get into security, but they're just not sure what's the best for them? Like, how do they kind of explore, like, there's so many different domains I can be in a security professional. Where should I start? Like, what's the best place to start if there's any best place? We'll go to Mira first.
Awesome. So it can be very difficult to choose a particular discipline, especially at the beginning of your security journey, right? So I think maybe a sweet spot would be to know what you're comfortable with. Like, for example, what are you working on right now? And think about how can you bring in security, right? And security organization is typically a cross-collaborative organization, right? So we work with different teams. And so understanding and working with security teams as to how you can bring in the security would probably be an easier start, right? You don't want to start off with something that you absolutely don't know about. So a good start would be start with something that you know, which is what you're doing right now, and collaborate with like security teams, right? Yeah, that's something that I would strongly suggest doing. And a lot of companies are open to switching between different teams, right? You don't necessarily have to know that this is the exact discipline within security that I want to start off right away with, right? You can always explore different teams, working with them. And there's always opportunities to shadow within different teams, learn what different teams are doing, although you're working on a different discipline, right? And even if you are not within the security organization, you can always become a security champion, right? Working with security to pick a project and then understand the security aspects of it and grow your skills from there.
Yeah, definitely. And I will also add, totally agree with Mira. Like, there's a lot of people that get into security and actually move around within the security organization. And personally, I also think when you're seeking for a job, it is also very important, at least like very important for me to do some research about the company culture, and also do some research about your boss as well, your manager, because my personal experience is if you really have a manager, the leader that really supports your career growth and give you that room to explore, you will really be like very like in really good hands and very successful. Like, that's primarily the reason why I joined LinkedIn actually at that time, because my previous job was a security engineer, and when I joined LinkedIn, so it was a TPM role. So it was also a security kind of a career transformation for me as well. So the reason why I joined that is at that time, the hiring manager gave me that confidence that I will have the room to grow into a new role, that I have the space to fail. It is okay to try something new that I've never done before. I never had any PM background before I joined LinkedIn, and when I'm on the team, so I was able to kind of do a little bit of the traditional TPM work, and doing a little bit of training awareness program, and then end up in compliance work, and then end up in my current position, which I really fell in love with, the GRC space. But that takes your manager, your leader, to have that trust in you and give you that room to grow. And same with like LinkedIn culture as well. I think, like, do some research about the company's culture, their security culture. Do they actually support it? Do they really see the security as their priority? I think that makes a huge difference as well, because you're not always like in the space where you want to do all those good things, but you don't have the necessary resource for you to do that. I think like the company culture and how supportive your manager, your leader are super, super important, despite which domain, which discipline that you want to pick in security. So that's also my personal kind of experience as well. I don't know if any other panelists want to share something.
I got some of the comments about this and what you guys are saying got me thinking about, well, I am in a role that is a growing area of security, but it doesn't involve coding, programming, like some people have mentioned. It doesn't involve actually implementing security. It's not technical. So when hunting for jobs, I've learned that people in my field have to get creative. It's good to go look at something like the SANS website. In fact, I encourage you to do an internet search for something like security skills roadmap or cybersecurity careers and see what comes up. And there will be a good list of non-technical roles like security assurance, policy management. That's good for attorneys to get into sometimes, for example. Cyber law and ethics, security awareness and training, and then just straight up security communications. That's a new title. Start looking for job titles on LinkedIn and other job boards that mention security and writing or security and law, things like that, and get a key for the keywords that you're looking for in jobs and what to add to your resume so that your resume has the right language in it. Because when I'm looking at resumes, I look for certain words within the resume. And if somebody in the banking field mentions that they've done some risk audit and compliance work, that catches my attention. So those are my thoughts.
I just want to jump
Awesome.
in here for a second because it pains me to hear Sarah describe herself as not technical.
Oh, I know.
I think, but if I extrapolate this out, I think it's something, especially in cybersecurity, where we need to rethink what technical means to us, because what technical used to mean, and I think what some we'll say employers that haven't quite caught up with the current times think of technical as like, oh, you can write code, or you're an operations engineer or an SRE, and really technical, especially in the security space, is like you understand the fundamentals of how technology works, or what security is, and what its function is. And like, for example, Sarah and her team do a fantastic job of understanding these very deeply nuanced technical questions that come in from customers, and sort of being a translation layer between the rest of the org. So they might talk to engineers, they might talk to GRC folks, they might talk to lawyers or privacy experts, and they're synthesizing all this very nuanced, detailed technical information and forming it into an answer that makes sense to the customer. That is not non-technical work. It is just not coding, right? And I think it's really important to point out to people, like, just because you're not writing software does not mean you are non-technical, and more importantly, doesn't mean you're not valuable from a compensation perspective, right? Just because you're not writing software. Don't let people trick you into thinking you're not technical. I'd also say, like, you can build up technical skills, like learning how technology works, and translate that into a GRC job. Or I noticed there's a question here about, should I work on the SOC or in GRC? Like, what should I do? It's like, your first job should be like, get any job in security and build up the technical skills that you feel good about, that you feel like you can learn really, really well. And then from there, learn, I think it was Mira or Angel that said this, learn where you want to go from there, right? Once you have that job, once you've built that base, once you've learned what security is really like in a company, the world's your oyster. You really can go anywhere from there if you're investing in yourself and you're learning. Just doesn't have to be investing in a master's degree.
For sure, and always have that curious mind, because again, it's such a multi-discipline space, and especially for me, like in GRC, so we're also very horizontal team that you kind of need to understand a little bit of everything, whether you're on the risk team or compliance team, right? Always have that curious mind and growth mindset will always be helpful. Speaking of technical skill and whether technical, non-technical, I think one other question I always hear from people asking is like, what are some, or also all of you are hiring managers or always on interview panels, what are some skill set and quality that you value the most when you're evaluating a candidate? Of course, there's going to be specific technical skill requires for the specific job, but I think there's a lot of common skill and a common quality that we always value. So any thought on that? I want to hear from Mira, Nina. I think you've been hiring and building the team from day one since you joined InfoSec.
Yes, no, I would love to answer this. And I'll focus more on the soft skills and qualities. The reason is because I believe that as long as you have the foundational technical skills or have this growth mindset, then we can teach and a candidate can learn those technical skills. So my focus has always been on the soft skills. To me, it is important that if you're motivated to learn and grow, and of course, if you're a good culture fit for the team, someone who has shown a growth pattern of learning and efforts to improve themselves. So if somebody comes to interview saying they did not have a degree, but this is the course they did to learn about this, to me, that's impressive. That means they want to improve. If they already have a job, what they have done to uplift others around them, to me, that's a good team player. That's a culture fit. Another important quality that impresses me is what they have learned from their failures. Is there something that frustrates them or it motivates them? So in short, if I have to put it, I always look for a growth mindset, and if that is there, to me, that's a valuable candidate to invest in.
Awesome. Thank you, Nina, for sharing that. Other panelists want to jump in here?
Sure. For me, in a technical interview, I don't expect people to answer every single question, right? You don't necessarily have to be a subject matter expert here, but you're particularly looking for whether they are willing to learn, right? So even if you sort of give them a hint, they can catch on and apply, whatever they have just learned. So that's something that I'm always looking for, and a lot of like open-ended questions. It's very interesting to see how people come up with different solutions, right, with these open-ended questions, and that shows how adaptable they are. So yeah, that's something that I'm always looking for. And I think there's one question here which talks about like internship, whether you have to have like every single thing in your skills list, right? Um, you don't necessarily have to check off all the boxes, right? Especially if it is an internship, you always can ask the recruiter specifically, hey, what are the projects that I have if I were to take up an internship, right, at LinkedIn or anywhere else? So ask them more about the project, and it makes sense to prepare for that from that perspective rather than looking at all the skills that are listed in the job description and learning all of those.
Awesome. No, that makes a lot of sense, and cannot agree more. So let me ask the very last question, and then we'll get into our audience question. I think there's tons of questions already we've seen here. What is one piece of advice you wish someone actually told you before you got into security? I'll start from Jeff.
Before I get into security, I think the piece of advice I would go back and tell myself is like security can be a stressful job. Working in tech in general can be a stressful job. I think for me specifically, like, don't stop exercising just because you didn't go to work for the FBI and you don't have to pass a physical fitness test. Like, don't stop exercising, because not just because I'd like to lose some pandemic weight, but also because it's like anything you can do to manage your stress and to manage a job like this is really beneficial. Like, constantly being in a growth mindset and learning and dealing with the problems that we deal with in InfoSec, which can be very rewarding. And I think we all show up every day, not because the job is boring, but because the job is different all the time. That can still be very stressful, and we all need ways to work on that, both physically and mentally.
And have a healthy diet as well.
I mean, if you're exercising, do you need to eat right? I don't know. This is the wrong webcast.
I see.
No, you don't.
Sarah, Mira, Nina, what do you got? What do you think?
I'll say that one advice, the mistake I made was overthinking my career at first. I don't know if it's because I come from a different education system where I thought that once I selected something, that's it, that is for my life. I'll be interested in something for my entire life. And I think now I know I can change. It's my life, my decision. If something is not, I'm not interested in that anymore, I can always change. And I think that's the advice I will give my younger self and everyone else, that if you're not interested, you can always change. You're not stuck with something forever.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. None of us actually are doing the same thing 10 years ago, right?
Sure.
So, Mira, what about you?
I would say always be learning, right? So the security is one of those fields which has like rapid advances. So you always have to keep up with what's going on in the industry. So that's something that I would always advise, whatever level you are.
Is there any resources that you recommend for people besides LinkedIn feeds to get up to date with what's going on in the industry?
Other than social media, newsletters are like a great source to curate all of them. So personally, I like TLDR to learn more about all the advances in the security field. Lots of podcasts, I would say, and they're a lot of fun too. So yeah, I like listening to podcasts as well.
Awesome. Sarah, what about you? What's one advice that you will give people, or you wish someone gave you?
I wish I had known sooner, or told myself that your drive to win will be your superpower and your weakness learn to harness it, and to give it a rest. Because like being driven will help you succeed. But if you want to survive a long time in security and be happy, you have to learn how to just let things go sometimes.
That's really deep. All right. Let's look at the question from our audience. We have tons of questions. There, one I saw was, I think it's also very common and very interesting, is someone asked, most entry level security jobs require at least 3 years experience. What is the way to around that this hurdle? What's your thought, Jeff?
I mean, I'm like I said at the beginning, just ignore that. Would be the number one thing to do. And then the number two thing, which is more a job for us, the panelists, is to remind people, like, stop doing that. Like, entry level. I took an entry level job at McDonald's many moons ago. McDonald's did not go, now do you have 3 years working at another McDonald's or another Burger King? That was not a thing. That's entry level. Like, entry level is, I have the basic skill sets, and I think I can apply them here. So I would say, like, just ignore that. Just apply anyway. And this leads to what I think both Mira and Angel were talking about. Like, it can tell you something about the culture sometimes if they're like, hey, entry level job, very basic. You just need a PhD, 10 years of experience, and like have invented a technology before. It's like, maybe that's not where you want to work. Maybe that's not the place for you to grow and start in InfoSec anyway.
I look for job advertisements where there are soft skills listed as required, right? And like the opposite of that tells you about their culture. And sometimes they will even say things like, we will teach you, you will learn a lot on this job. And that's what you look for.
Yeah, for sure. Any thought from Nita?
I was also going to say that ignore it, and if you feel like this is a job you're interested in and you can do a good job, still try. Because I feel like a lot of time there's not that much effort put into job description. It's just something standard which is there. But when you speak with the manager or the recruiter, they are willing to try have someone new with new fresh perspective. So don't let that discourage you that there's a 3 year of experience. Just if you think you're the right person, go for it.
Yep.
Somebody mentioned do you fake it till you make it? To some degree, yeah. Like, I've done that many times. I'm a big proponent of the school of bluffing it until you really know.
There's a difference here between lying and faking it till you make it. Like, just fake it till you make it. It's like, have confidence in yourself. You can do this. You're going to learn, and you're not going to get fired because you didn't know the answer to some specific question. Like, just go try, go do it.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, that goes back to kind of what I was talking about, like having that really support system from your organization, your leadership, that allows you to feel comfortable to fail, allows you to say, I don't know, I will do research, I will learn about it. That's very, very important. Whether you're in security or not, I think that's always going to be on my top of the list when I'm looking for a new job. The culture is supportive of that, people growing and the learning new things. So the other question I see there is someone is asking if I'm currently a IT procurement analyst in bank and are interested in moving to cybersecurity. And my CISO wants me to start out as the SOC analyst, but I think I like GRC. Yes, I like the fact that you like GRC. First of all, how do I run away from all the coding, blah blah, and just have my 2 legs in cybersecurity? Anyone?
Let's see. Time to have a conversation with that boss, with that CISO, and tell them what you think you'd be good at. I think, like, clearly, if they're offering you an opportunity, it shouldn't be only that opportunity. It should be an opportunity for you to be successful. And I'd be shocked, especially at a bank, that they didn't, have room for another GRC analyst.
Mm-hmm.
It's a highly valuable skill set. to have. SOC analyst is good too. I mean, I wouldn't poo-poo it, but like if you already know that that's not what you want, then advocate for yourself. And if you don't know how to advocate for yourself, what I would tell you to do is like seek out some, network with some other people that are already in security. Seek out like one of the panelists here. I'll sell them out. I respond regularly to messages on LinkedIn. All of the panelists here probably would too. Just ask. People are willing to give you their time and give you their perspective, and people want to see you generally succeed.
Yeah. And I personally think like starting in GRC, it is actually a really good space to start if you're new to InfoSec, especially you're coming from different background because as I mentioned earlier, GRC is also very cross-functional, very horizontal discipline with InfoSec. We day in, day out need to interact with all our peer, pretty much every single team within InfoSec, that you learn a little bit about what the incident response team are doing. You learn about what the AppSec team is doing, platform security or infrastructure security team are doing. Like you have to have that ability to connect the dots, whether you're in compliance or policy or risk team. So I think GRC is actually a really, really good space for people who are starting their job in security in general. So I would definitely highly recommend if I don't know who asked that question, that if you are interested in GRC, do it. And we're always hiring on our team as well. So there's tons of opportunity out there too. All right, let's see what other question we got here.
I love seeing these questions. So like knowing it's like, I think back like 10, 15 years myself and thinking, I was never alone. None of you are alone. There are so many of us that really want to do this. I think we can.
Yeah, one question kind of really jumps out. I think we kind of touched upon a little bit about this. What type of reskilling and certification training would you recommend for someone who has taken a long career break and looking to pivot into security? I don't think the long break makes any difference, like the thing that we already talked about, but I would love to kind of get perspective from the panelists for someone who actually had a long career break and now wanting to rejoin the workforce, and what are some advices for them if they're getting into security?
I can share my experience, what piqued my interest, and that was actually I was listening to Darknet Diaries podcast, and I still listen to it, but that's what piqued my interest initially. Listening to it made me feel like if I could be there, I'd be like a 007 agent solving mysteries all the time. But that was the initial one. It's still very interesting work. But since I've joined, I have tried to subscribe to blogs, Twitter accounts, or people who post on LinkedIn, leaders that I appreciate their content and I feel like it helps me stay up to date. What I try is not subscribe to too much, because if I'm drowning in information, then that's overwhelming for me. So I try to limit to 2 or 3 that helps me stay up to date. And if something is interesting to me, then that's what I want to learn more about it. So the top 3 that I look at is IT Security Guru, or Security Weekly, or the Hacker News. Those are the ones that I really like. I feel like they help me stay up to date. There are courses in Stanford and others which are also helpful in building foundation, but that's something I think we should invest into that if you're sure that you want to be in cybersecurity. But otherwise, it's important to just get used to the terminologies, understanding what they're talking about, and if that's interesting, then learn more.
I'll jump in here and just say, look, if you're just starting out and you've taken a break, or maybe this is your first potential foray into tech, it's really useful to understand, what are the basics of the internet? How does that work? How do networking and computers work? And just start from like, where's your comfort level? Because no matter what job you do, whether it be GRC or customer security, or whether you're going to go into application security, there's a sort of a sliding scale about what things you need to know about, but all of them are should understand basically how networked products work, how websites work, and then sort of follow your inspiration from there. I will say there's a couple of good starting points that are not by any means requirements for most jobs, but Security Plus is a great place to start because it's inexpensive. It's only, I think it's less than $300 to take the test. You can buy a book, so for like $300 all in, you could get everything you need to get certified, to get a basic entry-level certification about security. And that, by all means, will not teach you exactly how to do a job, any specific job in security, but it might give you enough to feel like, oh, here's the areas I need to learn more. Here's the areas that, like, when I was learning this thing got me really excited and I want to learn more about. And then just, listen to yourself and guide yourself towards that direction of whatever inspires you, whatever you think you can learn more about and be good at. But a basic certification like that, or I hate to recommend a boot camp because sometimes they can be very expensive, especially if you're transitioning. If that's within your means, like, that's a great way to get exposure to a lot of information. I used to, in my the last place, my admin who was supporting me, my executive business partner, sent her off to a security boot camp, not because we expected that in that case she was going to learn everything about security, but now she understood, like, she had a basic exposure to everything that she might encounter and had a much better understanding of, like, oh, what's everybody's job? What are they doing? And we found out that as we would transition people, maybe they were a recruiter and now they could have become a TPN. That was a great way to get exposure. If that's not for you, there are lots of other ways to learn about these things. And LinkedIn has a lot of great classes on it. There's a lot of great free content on the internet and YouTube in general. Just start anywhere and follow that rabbit hole where it takes you. If you have that growth mindset, if you're a committed learner, you will pick it up.
Totally. Something along the same line of break into security. And we talk a little bit about, like, during the interview, whether some skill set and qualities that we're looking for. I saw a lot of questions from the audience asking about how to build a good resume. So I think that's also another very practical question is, if someone wants to get their first job in security, what are some tips and advices that you have for them to build a resume to really stand out of like hundreds of thousands of resume that we're seeing every day?
You might have to get through a screening tool that is looking for certain words, and like before it even gets to the recruiter. So make sure you read a bunch of job descriptions and make sure some of the right words are in there. So like I said before, if you've done banking, I've seen a lot of people come in from banking or accounting. If they want to get into security, this word security should be somewhere in their resume, even if it's am interested in security. And look up some of the tools that are used, just that you're interested in learning, that you've looked into it, so that you get through that first technical screen and actually get to talk to a manager, the person you want to meet. So
totally.
I would just say don't be afraid to put buzzwords in your resume or LinkedIn profile, especially when you're just entering the field. Like Sarah said, you're going to have to get through maybe an older company's processing system, or maybe HR is looking for specific buzzwords. Like, throw those in there. Your main objective with your resume is to get a phone call with a recruiter or an interview. Like, don't lie in your resume. That's not going to go well for you. But if there are things that you're learning, like, pepper that thing with buzzwords. Make sure you're getting through that filter. Don't feel bad about that. That's part of advocating for yourself and part of working on your career track. Just make sure that anything you put in there, you can speak to why it's in there. If you put, if you put C# or, I don't know, intrusion detection systems in there, you don't know anything about those, like, that's going to go bad. But if it's like you're learning, you can explain that you're learning about those things, that you're interested, that you want to learn more, that you've learned the basics. Your resume and your CV really you should be focused on that being an opportunity to have a conversation with someone. And whatever you need to do to have that conversation, don't feel bad about it. Don't threaten anyone. I think that's
Awesome. That's very practical advices for our audience. Well, I think we're right on time. And thank you all the panelists here, Nina, Mira, Sarah, and Jeff, as well to really share their story, their perspective, and answering questions from our audience. We didn't get through every single question there, but feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn or we says that if you want to have a further conversation on this topic or any topic in security, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to us. And also Link share a tons of job opening posting that we're currently hiring. So if you are interested in those roles, definitely reach out to us to learn more about that and learn more about how does it look like working for LinkedIn, working for InfoSec in LinkedIn. So really appreciate everyone's time here and really appreciate audience engagement and all the questions here. I think that's a wrap for today. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.